In talking about self-realization, some individuals take the word realization in an external way, such as meaning the same as achieving one's professional or family goals. It's like self-actualization. What word would you suggest as an alternative to realization? One way to solve this issue is to use a Sanskrit word. That is what we have done in our translation of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. For example, we did not translate the word Purusha, but simply used Purusha in our translated verse and defined it in the lexicon. You could also define it in the text in the first use of the word Purusha, the soul. The word Gurudeva uses for realization in the trilogy is darshana. For example, Dancing with Shiva, Mandala 1 is self-realization, Paramatma Darshanam. Darshana has the meaning of vision, sight. To render darshana in English, you could say mystical sight of the self. So it's a mystical sight, not just an ordinary sight. Please give a short explanation of what does realizing God and realizing the self mean in Hinduism. Again, this to write a long explanation easier than a shorter one. The concept of realizing God and realizing the self in Hinduism has different meanings in different philosophical schools of Hinduism. Very important. In the theistic schools, it would mean having a vision of God as a deity, God in his or her personal form. For God Shiva, that would be Parameshvara Darshana, that form of God realization. Parameshvara Darshana. However, our tradition looks at realization from a monistic perspective. In other words, that experience doesn't count. You can have the vision of Shiva, but we don't consider that the end goal. Gurudeva gives this description. Realization is in several stages. Realizing oneself as a soul, rather than a mind, an intellectual and emotional type, or a worthless person, gives satisfaction, security, and this is a starting point. That is called Atma Darshana, meaning Jivatma, our individual soul sense. We're a spiritual being, but we're separate from everything else. That's Atma Darshana, which Yogaswami has in a number of places in Nachintanai. Atma Darshana is what we're striving for. Realization of the self as Satchit Ananda gives contentment. Well, that's how to be content in an inner way. A release from all emotions and thoughts of the external world, and the nerve system responds to the energies flowing through the Vishuddha and Anahata chakras. So that's an inner look at contentment, and it's another form of realization. Realization of the self is Satchit Ananda. This is called Parashakti Darshana or Satchit Ananda Darshana. Realizing the self that transcends time, form, and space, Parashiva, is a razor-edged experience, cutting all bonds, reversing individual awareness, such as looking out from the self rather than looking into the self. That is called Paramatma Darshana. So the Sanskrit, using the Sanskrit gives a clearer concept of what type of self-realization we're talking about. They're all grouped in the concept of self-realization, but we can break them out very precisely with Sanskrit terms. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.